Hi, we're back. This is the third video today, and we are going to be reading from Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. If you've not seen the previous two videos, they are now in my playlist, my Harry Potter playlist, and you can go back and visit them whenever you'd like. For those of you that are new here, my name's Jay. I was supposed to do a Back to Hogwarts series of normal videos as I would upload them each day. Didn't work. Asked my subscribers and they wanted me to go live to read them instead. And today is Back to Hogwarts. It's September 1st, so it's the perfect day to do it for Harry Potter fans everywhere. I'm currently just going to wait a second just to see if anyone wants to join, and then I'll start in a second. And we are starting with chapter 10 for Order of the Phoenix, and it's my favorite chapter because my favorite character comes into it. If you know my favorite character, you know who I'm talking about. I just stopped to get a... If you know where this is from as well, let me know. Just quickly stop for a toilet break to make a thumbnail for the last video. Just to have a quick break. It was lovely getting to chat to people after when I did the last live stream. I ended up talking for almost half an hour, near an hour, to people all over the world, and it was just crazy, but it was nice that Harry Potter is loved everywhere. It's insane. But I'll probably just get started in about 30 seconds or so. Just because I don't think anyone's online yet. Not by the looks of it, because there's no one here. But me. So I end up talking to myself. Or Clive. He's down there. My co-host. He's sleeping. Can't believe I've been doing videos, live streams since like 11:15 this morning. The things I do. I'm just glad my laptop's not falling yet. Okay, let's just get started and we'll see if people come in. So, we are going with chapter 10 from Order of the Phoenix. This is a very old copy of the book, I know. Been with me since I was a child. And chapter 10 is Luna Lovegood. Harry had a troubled night's sleep. His parents wove in and out of his dreams, never speaking. Miss Weasley sobbed over Creature's dead body, watched by Ron and Hermione, who were wearing crowns. And yet again, Harry found himself walking down a corridor, ending in a locked door. He woke abruptly with his scar prickling to find Ron, already dressed, talking to him. "Better hurry up. Mum's going to go ballistic. She says we're going to miss the train." There's a lot of commotion in the house, from what he'd heard as he dressed at top speed. Harry, gathering that Fred and George had bewitched their trunks to fly down the stairs to save the bother of carrying them, with the result that they'd hurtled straight into Ginny and knocked her down 2 flights of stairs into the hall. Miss Black and Miss Weasley were both screaming at the top of their voices. "Could have done her serious injury, you idiots! Filthy half-breeds, besmirching the house of my fathers." Hermione came hurrying into the room looking flustered, just as Harry was putting on his trainers. Hedwig was swaying on her shoulder, and she was carrying a squirming Crookshanks in her arms. "Mum and Dad just sent Hedwig back." They were fluttered oblongingly over and perched on top of her cage. "Are you ready yet?" "Nearly. Is Ginny all right?" Harry asked, shoving his glasses. Harry Potter 1, 2, 3. Hey! Just started Order of the Phoenix, chapter 10. How are you? Pause a second. It's a bit rude not to ask. I always feel pressure when someone's watching. Where are they? "Yeah, nearly. Is Ginny all right?" Harry asked, shoving on his glasses. "Miss Weasley's patched her up," said Hermione. "But now, Mad Eye's complaining we can't leave unless Sturgis Podgemore's here. Otherwise the guard will be one short." "Guard?" said Harry. "We have to go to King's Cross with a guard?" "You have to go to King's Cross with a guard," Hermione corrected him. "Why?" said Harry irritably. "I thought Voldemort was supposed to be lying low. Or are you telling me he's going to jump out from behind a dustbin to try and do me in?" "I don't know. It's just Mad Eye," said Hermione, disgruntledly looking at her watch. "But if we don't leave soon, we're definitely going to miss the train." "Well, you lot get down here now, please!" Miss Weasley bellowed, and Hermione jumped as though scalded and hurried out of the room. Harry seized Hedwig, stuffed her into her cage, and set off downstairs after Hermione, dragging his trunk. Mrs. Black's portrait was howling with rage, but nobody was bothering to close the curtains over her. All the noise in the hall was bound to rouse her again anyway. Harry, you're coming with me and Tonks, shouted Miss Weasley, over the repeated screech of mudbloods, scum, creatures of dirt. Leave your trunk in your owl. Alistair's going to deal with the luggage. Oh, for heaven's sake, Sirius, Dumbledore said no. A bear-like black dog had appeared at Harry's side as he was clambering over the various trunks cluttering the hall to get to Miss Weasley. Oh, honestly, said Miss Weasley despairingly. Well, on your own head be it. She wrenched open the front door and stepped out into the weak September sunlight. Harry and the dog followed her. The door slammed behind them, and Mrs. Black's screeches were cut off instantly. Where's Tonks? Harry said, looking round as they went down the steps of number 12, which vanished the moment they reached the pavement. She's waiting for us just up here, said Miss Weasley stiffly, averting her eyes from the looping black dog beside Harry. An old woman greeted them on the corner. She had a tightly curled grey hair and wore a purple hat shaped like a pork pie. Watcha, Harry, she said, winking. Better hurry up, haven't we, Molly? She added, checking her watch. I know, moaned Miss Weasley, lengthening her stride. But mad I wanted to wait for Sturgis. If only Arthur could have got his cast from the ministry again. But Fudge wouldn't let him borrow so much as an empty ink bottle these days. How muggles can stand travelling without magic? But the great black dog gave a joyful bark and gambolled around them, snapping at pigeons and chasing its own tail. Harry couldn't help laughing. Sirius had been trapped inside for a very long time. Miss Weasley pursed her lips in an almost Aunt Petunia-ish way. It took them 20 minutes to reach King's Cross on foot, and nothing more than eventful happened during that time than Sirius scaring a couple of cats for Harry's entertainment. Once inside the station, they lingered casually beside the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 until the coast was clear. Then each of them leaned against it in turn and fell easily through onto the platform 9 3/4, where the Hogwarts Express stood belching sooty steam over a platform packed with departing students and their families. Harry inhaled the familiar smell and felt his spirits soar. He was really going back. Hope the others make it in time, said Miss Weasley anxiously, staring behind her at the iron arch spanning the platform through which new arrivals would come. Nice dog, Harry, called a tall boy with dreadlocks. Thanks, Lee, grinned Harry, as Sirius wagged his tail frantically. Oh, good, said Miss Weasley, sounding relieved. Here's Alistair with the luggage. Look. A porter's cap pulled lower over his mismatched eye. Moody came limping through the archway, pulling a trolley loaded with their trunks. Okay, he muttered to Miss Weasley and Tonks. Don't think we're followed. Seconds later, Mr. Weasley emerged onto the platform with Ron and Hermione. They almost had unloaded Moody's luggage trolley when Fred, George, and Ginny turned up with Lupin. No trouble, growled Moody. Nothing, said Lupin. I'll still be reporting Sturgis to Dumbledore, said Moody. That's the second time he's not turned up in a week. Getting as getting unreliable as Mundungus. Well, look after yourself, said Lupin, shaking hands all round. He reached Harry last and gave him a clap on the shoulder. You too, Harry. Be careful. Yeah, keep your head down and your eyes peeled, said Moody, shaking Harry's hand too. And don't forget, all of you, careful what you put in writing. If in doubt, don't put it in letter at all. It's been great meeting all of you, said Tonks, hugging Hermione and Ginny. We'll see you soon, I expect. A warning whistle sounded. The students still on the platform started hurrying onto the train. Quick, quick, said Miss Weasley, hugging them at random and catching Harry twice. Right, be good. If you've forgotten anything, we'll send it on. Onto the train now, hurry. For one brief moment, the great big black dog reared onto its hind legs and placed its front paws on Harry's shoulder, but Miss Weasley shoved Harry away towards the train door, hissing, For heaven's sake, act more like a dog, Sirius. See you, Harry called out the open window as the train began to move, while Ron, Hermione, and Ginny waved beside him. The figures of Tonks, Lupin, Moody, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley shrank rapidly, but the big black dog was bounding alongside the window, wagging its tail. Blurred people on the platform were laughing to see it chasing the train. Then they rounded a bend, and Sirius was gone. You shouldn't have come with us, said Hermione in a worried voice. Oh, lighten up, said Ron. He hasn't seen daylight for months, poor bloke. Well, said Fred, clapping his hands together, can't stand around chatting all day. We've got business to discuss with Lee. See you later. And he and George disappeared down the corridor to the right. The train was still gathering still more speed, so that the houses outside the window flashed past, and they swayed where they stood. Shall we go find a compartment then? Harry asked. Ron and Hermione exchanged looks. Said Ron. Well, we're not supposed to go to the prefect's carriage, said Hermione awkwardly. Ron wasn't looking at Harry. He seemed to have become instantly interested in the fingernails on his left hand. Oh, said Harry. Right. Fine. I don't think we'll have to stay there all journey, said Hermione quickly. Arletta said we just get instruction from the head boy and girl and then patrol the corridors from time to time. Fine, said Harry again. Well, I might see you later then. Yeah, definitely, said Ron, casting a shifty, anxious look at Harry. It's a pain having to go down there. I'd rather. But we have to. I mean, I'm not enjoying it. I'm not Percy, he finished defiantly. I know you're not, said Harry, and he grinned. But as Hermione and Ron dragged their trunks, Crookshanks, and a caged pigwidgeon off towards the engine end of the train, Harry felt an odd sense of loss. He'd never travelled on the Hogwarts Express without Ron. Come on, Ginny told him. If you get a move on, we'll be able to save them places. Right, said Harry, picking up Hedwig's cage in one hand and the handle of his trunk in the other. They struggled off down the corridor, peering through the glass-panelled doors into the compartments they passed, which were already full. Harry could not help noticing a lot of people stared back at him with great interest, and that several of them nudged their neighbours and pointed him out. After he had met this behaviour in 5 consecutive carriages, he remembered that the Daily Prophet had been telling all its readers all summer what a lying show-off he was. He wondered dully whether the people now staring and whispering believed the stories. In the very last carriage, they met Neville Longbottom, Harry's fellow fifth-year Gryffindor, his round face shining with the effort of pulling his trunk along, maintaining a one-handed grip on his struggling toad Trevor. Hi, Harry, he panted. Hi, Ginny. Everywhere's full. I can't find a seat. What are you talking about? Said Ginny, who had squeezed past Neville to peer into the compartment behind them. There's room in this one. There's only Loony Lovegood in here. Neville mumbled something about not wanting to disturb anyone. Don't be silly, said Ginny, laughing. She's all right. She slit the door open and put their trunks inside. Harry and Neville followed. Hi, Luna, said Ginny. Is it okay if we take these seats? The girl beside the window looked up. She had straggly waist-length, dirty blonde hair, very pale eyebrows, protuberant eyes that gave her a permanently surprised look. Harry knew at once why Neville had chosen to pass the compartment by. The girl gave off an aura of distant dottiness. Perhaps it was the fact that she had stuck her wand behind her left ear for safekeeping, or that she had chosen to wear a necklace of butterbeer corks, or that she was reading a magazine upside down. Her eyes ranged over Neville and came to rest on Harry. She nodded. Thanks, said Ginny, smiling at her. Harry and Neville stowed the 3 trunks and Hedwig's cage in the luggage rack and sat down. Luna watched them over her upside-down magazine, which was called The Quibbler. She did not seem to need to blink as much as normal humans. She stared and stared at Harry, who had taken the seat opposite her, and now wished she hadn't. Had a good summer, Luna? Ginny asked. Yes, said Luna dreamily without taking her eyes off Harry. Yes, it was quite enjoyable. You know, you're Harry Potter, she added. I know I am, said Harry. Sorry. Neville chuckled. Luna turned her pale eyes onto him instead. I don't know who you are. I'm nobody, said Neville hurriedly. No, you're not, said Ginny. Neville Longbottom, Luna Lovegood. Luna's in my year, but in Ravenclaw. Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure, said Luna in a sing-song voice. She raised her upside-down magazine high enough to hide her face and fell silent. Harry and Neville looked at each other with their eyebrows raised. Ginny suppressed a giggle. The train rattled onwards, speeding them out into the open country. It was an odd, unsettled sort of day. One moment the carriage was full of sunlight, and the next they were passing beneath ominously grey clouds. Hey, Kenzie. We're on order. They've just met Luna. Just catching you up a little bit. Guess what I got for my birthday, said Neville. Another rememberall, said Harry, remembering the marble-like device Neville's grandmother had sent him in an effort to improve his abysmal memory. What chapter? I'll go get mine. 10. Chapter 10, Luna Lovegood, is it? Yes. Chapter 10. I don't know if your copy will be the same as mine, because some pages are different. Because I'm on page 169 right now. But some copies are different depending on where you get them from, I think. Mine is Bloomsbury. Also, it might be the same. 169. Birthday. Another remember. I love how you just want to read along with me as well, Mackenzie. It's fun. Is there anyone else here? You can say hi. It's okay. So see, there's 2 people. You can carry on, I'll find it. You'll find it, that's fine. As long as you... No, said Neville. I could do one, though. I lost the old one ages ago. No, look at this. He dug the hand that was not keeping a firm grip on Trevor into his school bag, and after a little bit of rummaging, pulled out what appeared to be a small grey cactus in a pot, except that it was covered with what looked like boils rather than spines. Mimulus Mimbletonia, he said proudly. Harry stared at the thing. It was pulsating slightly, giving it the rather sinister look of some diseased internal organ. It's really, really rare, said Neville, beaming. I don't know if there's one in the greenhouse at Hogwarts even. Can't wait to show it to Professor Sprout. My great-uncle Algie got it for me in Arisia. I'm going to see if I can breed from it. Harry knew that Neville's favourite subject was herbology, but for the life of him, he could not see what he would want this little studded little plant. Does it, do anything? He asked. Loads of stuff, said Neville proudly. It's got an amazing defence mechanism. Here, hold Trevor for me. He dumped the toad into Harry's lap and took a quill from his school bag. Luna Lovegood's popping eyes appeared over the top of the upside-down magazine again to watch Neville was doing. Neville held the Mimulus Mimbletonia up to his eyes, his tongue between his teeth, chose a spot, and gave the plant a sharp prod with the tip of its quill. Liquid squirted from every boil on the plant, thick, stinking, dark green jets of it. They hit the ceiling, the windows, and spattered Luna Lovegood's magazine. Ginny, who'd flung her arms up in front of her face just in time, merely looked as though she was wearing a slimy green hat. But Harry, whose hands had been busy preventing Trevor's escape, received a faceful. It smelled like rancid manure. Neville, whose face and torso were also drenched, shook his head to get the worst out of his eyes. Sorry, he gasped. Never tried that before. Didn't realise it'd be quite so... Don't worry though, stink sap's not poisonous, he added nervously, as Harry spat a mouthful onto the floor. At that precise moment, the door of their compartment opened. Oh, hello, Harry, said a nervous voice. Bad time? Harry wiped the lens of his glasses with his Trevor-free hand. A very pretty girl with long, shiny black hair was standing in the doorway smiling at him. Cho Chang, the seeker on the Ravenclaw Quidditch team. Oh, hi, said Harry blankly. Said Cho. Well, just thought I'd say hello. Bye then. Rather pink in the face, she closed the door and departed. Harry slumped back in his seat and groaned. He would have liked that Cho to discover him sitting with a group of very cool people, laughing their heads off at a joke he just told. He would not have chosen to be sitting with Neville and Loony Lovegood clutching a toad and dripping in sinksap. Never mind, said Ginny bracingly. Look, we can easily get rid of this. She pulled out her wand. Scourgify! The sinksap vanished. Sorry, said Neville again in a small voice. Ron and Hermione did not turn up for nearly an hour, by which time the food trolley had already gone by. Harry, Ginny and Neville had finished their pumpkin pasties and were busy swapping chocolate frog cards when the compartment door slid open and they walked in, accompanied by Crookshanks and a shrilly hooting Pigwidgeon in his cage. I'm starving, said Ron, stowing Pigwidgeon next to Hedwig, grabbing a chocolate frog from Harry and throwing himself into the seat next to him. He ripped open the wrapper and bit off the chocolate frog's head and leant back with his eyes closed as though he had had a very exhausting morning. Well, there are 2 fifth-year prefects from each house, said Hermione, looking thoroughly disgruntled as she took her seat. Boy and girl from each. Guess who's a Slytherin prefect, said Ron, still with his eyes closed. Malfoy, replied Harry at once, certain his worst fears would be confirmed. Course, said Ron bitterly, stuffing the rest of the frog into his mouth and taking another. And that complete cow, Pansy Parkinson, said Hermione viciously. How's she got to be a prefect when she's thicker than a concussed troll? Who are the Hufflepuffs? Harry asked. Ernie Macmillan and Hannah Abbott, said Ron thickly. And Anthony Goldstein and Padma Patil for Ravenclaw, said Hermione. You went to the Yule Ball with Padma Patil, said a vague voice. Everyone turned to look at Luna Lovegood, who was gazing unblinkingly at Ron over the top of the quibbler. He swallowed a mouthful of his frog. Yeah, I did, he said, looking mildly surprised. She didn't enjoy it very much, said Luna informed him. She didn't think you treated her very well, because you wouldn't dance with her. I don't think I'd minded, she added thoughtfully. I don't like dancing very much. She retreated behind the quibbler again. Ron stared at the cover with his mouth hanging open for a few seconds, then looked round at Ginny for some kind of explanation. But Ginny had stuffed her knuckles in her mouth to stop herself giggling. Ron shook his head, bemused, then checked his watch. We're supposed to patrol the corridors every so often, he told Harry and Neville. And we give out punishments if people are misbehaving. Can't wait to get gave something to Crabbe and Goyle. "You're not supposed to abuse your position, Ron," said Hermione sharply. "Yeah, right, because Martha won't abuse it at all," said Ron sarcastically. You're going to descend to his level?" "No, I was going to make sure I get his mates before he gets mine." "For heaven's sake, Ron!" "Make Goyle do lines. It'll kill him. He hates writing," said Ron happily. He lowered his voice to Goyle's low grunt, and screwing his face up in a look of pained concentration, mimed writing in mid-air. "I must not look like a baboon's backside." Everyone laughed, but nobody laughed harder than Luna Lovegood. She let out a scream of mirth that caused Hedwig to wake up and flap her wings, and Crookshanks to leap up into Lovegood's rock, hissing. Luna laughed so hard her magazine slipped out her grasp, slid down her legs, and onto the floor. "That was funny!" Her prominent eyes swarmed with tears as she gasped for breath, staring at Ron. Utterly nonplussed, he looked around the others, who were now laughing at the expression on Ron's face and at the ludicrous prolonged laughter of Luna Lovegood, who was rocking backwards and forwards, clutching her sides. "You taking the mickey?" he frowned at her. "Baboon's backside!" she choked, holding her ribs. Everyone else was watching Luna laughing, but Harry, glancing at the magazine on the floor, noticed something that made him dive for it. Upside down, it'd been hard to tell what the picture on the front was, but Harry now realised it was a fairly bad cartoon of Cornelius Fudge. Harry only recognised him because of the lime green bowler hat. One of Fudge's hands was clenched around a bag of gold, and the other was throttling a goblin. The cartoon was captioned, "How far will Fudge go to gain Gringotts?" Beneath this were listed the titles of other articles inside the magazine. Corruption in the Quidditch League, How the Tornadoes Are Taking Control, Secrets of Ancient Runes Revealed, Sirius Black, Villain or Victim. "Can I have a look at this?" Harry asked Luna eagerly. She nodded, still gazing at Ron, breathless with laughter. Harry opened the magazine and scanned the index. Until this moment, he had completely forgotten the magazine Kingsley had handed to Mr. Weasley to give to Sirius, but it must have been this edition of the Quibbler. He found the page and turned excitedly to the article. This, too, was illustrated by a rather bad cartoon. In fact, Harry wouldn't have known it was supposed to be Sirius if it hadn't been captioned. Sirius was standing on a pile of human bones with his wand out. The headline on the article said, "Sirius, black as he's painted? Notorious mass murderer or innocent singing sensation?" Harry had to read the first sentence several times before he was convinced that he had not misunderstood it. Since when had Sirius been a singing sensation? For 14 years, Sirius Black has been believed guilty of the mass murder of 12 innocent muggles and one wizard. Black's audacious escape from Azkaban 2 years ago has led to the wildest manhunt ever conducted by the Ministry of Magic. None of us had ever questioned that he deserved to be recaptured and handed back to the Dementors. But does he? Startling new evidence has recently come to light that Sirius Black may not have committed the crimes for which he was sent to Azkaban. In fact, says Doris Purkis of 18 Anthea Way, Little Norton, Black may not have even been present at the killings. What people don't realise is that Sirius Black's a false name, said Miss Perkins. The man people believe to be Sirius Black is actually Stubby Boardman, lead singer of popular singing group The Hobgoblins, who retired from public life after being struck on the ear by a turnip at a concert in Little Norton Church Hall nearly 15 years ago. I recognised him the moment I saw his picture in the paper. Now Stubby couldn't possibly have committed those crimes, because on the day in question, he happened to be enjoying a romantic candlelit dinner with me. I've written to the Minister of Magic, and I'm expecting to give Stubby, aka Sirius, a full pardon any day now. Harry finished reading and stared at the page in disbelief. Perhaps it was a joke, he thought. Perhaps the magazine often printed spoof items. He flicked back a few pages and found the piece on Fudge. Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic, denies that he had any plans to take over the running of the Wizarding Bank Gringotts when he was elected Minister of Magic 5 years ago. Fudge has always insisted that he wants nothing more than to cooperate peacefully with the Guardians of our Gold. But does he? A source close to the Minister has recently disclosed that Fudge's dearest ambition is to seize control of the Goblin gold supplies and that he will not hesitate to use force if need be. It wouldn't be the first time either, said a Ministry insider. Cornelius Goblin Crusher Fudge. That's what his friends call him. If you could hear him when he thinks no one's listening, he always talks about the goblins he'd done in. He's had them drowned, he's had them dropped off buildings, he's had them poisoned, he had them cooked in pies. Harry did not read any further. Fudge might have many faults, but Harry found it extremely hard to imagine him ordering goblins to be cooked into pies. He flicked through the rest of the magazine, Pausing every few pages, he read an accusation that the Tinshill Tornadoes were winning the Quidditch League by a combination of blackmail, illegal broom tampering, and torture. An interview with a wizard who claimed to have flown to the moon on a clean sweep 6 and brought back a bag of moon frogs to prove it. And an article on ancient runes, which at least explained why Luna was reading the Quibbler upside down. According to the magazine, if you turned the runes on their heads, they revealed a spell to make your enemy's ears turn into kumquats. In fact, compared to the rest of the article in the Quibbler, the suggestion that Sirius might be the lead singer of the Hobgoblins was quite sensible. Anything good in there? Asked Ron, as Harry closed the magazine. Course not, said Hermione scathingly before Harry could answer. The Quibbler's rubbish. Everyone knows that. Excuse me, said Luna. Her voice had suddenly lost its dreamy quality. My father's the editor. Oh, said Hermione, looking embarrassed. Well, it's got some interesting... it's quite... I'll have it back, thank you, said Luna coldly. Leaning forwards, she snatched it out of Harry's hands. Rifling through it to page 57, she turned it upside down again and disappeared behind it, just as the compartment door opened for the third time. Harry looked round. He'd expected this, but that did not make the sight of Draco Malfoy smirking at him from between his cronies Crabbe and Goyle any more enjoyable. What? He said aggressively before Malfoy could open his mouth. Manners, Potter. I'll have to give you detention, drawled Malfoy, whose sleek blonde hair and pointed chin were just like his father's. You see, I, unlike you, have made a prefect, which means that I, unlike you, have the power to hand out punishments. Yeah, said Harry, but you, unlike me, are a git, so get out and leave us alone. Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Neville laughed. Malfoy's lip curled. Tell me, how does it feel being second best to Weasley, Potter? He asked. Shut up, Malfoy, said Hermione sharply. Seem to have touched a nerve, said Malfoy smirking. Well, just watch yourself, Potter, because I'll be dogging your footsteps in case you step out of line. Get out, said Hermione, standing up. Sniggering, Malfoy gave Harry a last malicious look and departed with Crabbe and Goyle lumbering along in his wake. Hermione slammed... Love from India. Thank you. Hermione slammed the compartment door behind them and turned to look at Harry, who knew at once that she, like him, had registered what Malfoy had said and had just been unnerved by it. Chuck us a frog, said Ron, who had clearly noticed nothing. He could not talk freely in front of Neville and Luna. He exchanged a nervous look with Hermione, then stared out the window. He had thought Sirius coming with him to the station was a bit of a laugh, but suddenly it seemed reckless, if not downright dangerous. Hermione had been right. Sirius should not have come. What if Mr. Malfoy noticed the black dog and told Draco? What if he deduced that the Weasleys, Lupin, Tonks, and Moody knew where Sirius was hiding? Or had Malfoy's use of the word dogging been a coincidence? The weather remained undecided, and as they travelled further and further north, rain spattered the windows in a half-hearted way. Then the sun put in a feeble appearance before the clouds drifted over it once more. When the darkness fell and lamps came on inside the carriages, Luna rolled up the Quibbler, put it carefully away in her bag, and took to staring at everyone in the compartment instead. Harry was sitting with his forehead pressed against the train window, trying to get a first distant glimpse of Hogwarts, but it was a moonless night, and the rain-streaked window was grimy. "You'd better change," said Hermione at last, and all of them opened their trunks with difficulty and put on their school robes. She and Ron pinned their prefect badges carefully to their chests. Harry saw Ron checking his reflection in the black window. At last the train began to slow down, and they heard the usual racket up and down as everyone scrambled to their luggage and pets. "You're good English. Thank you." And pets assembled, ready to get off. As Ron and Hermione were supposed to supervise all this, they disappeared from the carriage again, leaving Harry and the others to look after Crookshanks and Pigwidgeon. "I'll carry that owl if you like," said Luna to Harry, reaching out for Pigwidgeon, as Neville stowed Trevor carefully in his inside pocket. "Oh, thanks," said Harry, handing her the cage and hoisting Hedwig more securely into his arms. They shuffled out the compartment, feeling the first sting of the night air on their faces as they joined the crowd in the corridor. Slowly they moved towards the doors. Harry could smell the pine trees that lined the path to the lake. He stepped down onto the platform and looked around, listening for the familiar call of, "First years over here, first years." They didn't come. Instead, quite different voice, a brisk female one, was calling, "First years, line up over here, please. All first years to me." A lantern came swinging towards Harry, and by its light he saw the prominent chin and severe haircut of Professor Grubbly Plank, the witch who had taken over Hagrid's care of magical creatures lessons for a while the previous year. Where's Hagrid? He said out loud. Don't know, said Ginny. But we better get out of the way. We're blocking the door. Oh, yeah. Harry and Ginny became separated as they moved off the platform and out through the station. Jostled by the crowd, Harry squinted through the darkness for a glimpse of Hagrid. He had to be here. Harry had been relying on it. Seeing Hagrid was one of the things he'd been looking forward to the most. But there was no sign of him. He can't have left, Harry told himself as he shuffled slowly through a narrow doorway onto the road outside with the rest of the crowd. He's just got a cold or something. He looked around for Ron or Hermione, wanting to know what they thought about the reappearance of Professor Grubbly Plunk, but neither of them were anywhere near him. So he allowed himself to be shunted forwards onto the dark rain-washed road outside Hogsmeade Station. Here stood the 100 or so horseless stagecoaches that always took the students above first year to the castle. Harry glanced quickly at them, turned away to keep a lookout for Ron and Hermione, and then did a double take. The coaches were no longer horseless. There were creatures standing between the carriages' shafts. I don't understand anything, but I like watching your... Oh, bless you. Thank you. There were creatures standing between the carriage shafts. If you had to give them a name, he supposed it would have called them horses, though there was something more reptilian about them too. They were completely fleshless, their black coats clinging to their skeletons, of which every bone was visible. Their heads were dragonish, and their pupilless eyes white and staring. Wings sprouted from each wither, vast, black, leathery wings that looked as though they ought to belong to giant bats. Standing still and quiet in the gathering gloom, the creatures looked eerie and sinister. Harry could not understand why the coaches were being pulled by these horrible horses, when they were quite capable of moving by themselves. "Where's Pig?" said Ron's voice right behind Harry. "That Luna girl was carrying him." "That Luna girl was carrying him," said Harry, turning quickly, eager to consult Ron about Hagrid. "Where do you reckon Hagrid is?" "I dunno," said Ron, sounding worried. "He better be okay." Short distance away, Draco Malfoy, followed by a small gang of cronies, including Crabbe, Goyle, and Pansy Parkinson, was pushing some timid-looking second years out of the way so that he and his friends could get a coach to themselves. A second later, Hermione emerged panting from the crowd. "Malfoy's been absolutely foul to first years back there. I swear I'm going to report him. He's only had his badge 3 minutes and he's using it to bully people worse than ever. Where's Crookshanks?" "Ginny's got him," said Harry. "There she is." Ginny had emerged from the crowd, clutching a squirming Crookshanks. "Thanks," said Hermione, relieving Ginny of the cat. I don't know why that word didn't come out. "Come on, let's get a carriage together before they all fill up." "I've not got Pig yet," Ron said, but Hermione was already heading off towards the nearest unoccupied coach. Harry remained behind with Ron. "What are those things, do you reckon?" he asked Ron, nodding at the horrible horses as the other students surged past them. "What things?" "Those horses." Luna appeared holding Pigwidgeon's cage in her arms. The tiny owl was twittering excitedly as usual. "Here you are," she said. "He's a sweet little owl, isn't he?" Yeah, he's all right," said Ron gruffly. "Well, come on then, let's get in. What were you saying, Harry?" "I was saying, what are those horse things?" Harry said, as he, Ron, and Luna made for the carriage in which Hermione and Ginny were already sitting. "What horse things?" "The horse things pulling the carriages," said Harry impatiently. They were, after all, about 3 feet from the nearest one. It was watching them with empty white eyes. Ron, however, gave Harry a perplexed look. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about... Look!" He grabbed Ron's arm and wheeled him about so that he was face to face with the winged horse. Ron stared straight at it for a second, then looked back at Harry. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" There between the shafts, harnessed to the coach. It's right there in front." But as Ron continued to look bemused, a strange thought occurred to Harry. Can't you see them?" "See what?" "Can't you see what's pulling the carriages?" Ron looked seriously alarmed now. "Are you feeling all right, Harry?" Yeah." Harry felt utterly bewildered. The horse was there, in front of him, gleaming solidly in the dim light issuing from the station windows behind them, vapour rising from its nostrils in the chilly night air. Yet, unless Ron was faking, and it was a very feeble joke if he was, Ron could not see it at all. "Should we get in then?" said Ron uncertainly, looking at Harry as though he was worried about him. "Yeah," said Harry. "Yeah, go on." "It's all right," said a dreamy voice from beside Harry as Ron vanished into the coach's dark interior. You're not going mad or anything. I can see them too. Can you? Said Harry desperately, turning to Luna. You could see the bat-winged horse's reflection in her wide silvery eyes. Oh yes, said Luna. I've been able to see them ever since my first day here. They've always pulled the carriages. Don't worry, you're just as sane as I am. Smiling faintly, she climbed into the musty interior of the carriages after Ron. Not altogether reassured, Harry followed her. And that was the chapter for Order of the Phoenix. I'm going to take a little minute to get some juice because my throat's drying, and then we'll go on to Half-Blood Prince. Oh, God. Reading does make your voice go, it's awful. Oh my God. And because I put ice in it, and this tumbler is designed to keep it really cold. I'm getting a bit of a brain freeze, but it's nice. Oh. I do like reading Luna's voice sometimes because it's so cute. Right, what chapter? For chapter 7. I have to find it. Found it. It's quick. I'm just going to wait a minute. Just to also check messages and things. I'm good. How are you? I'm just checking on my friend's stuff now because it's back to Hogwarts, so everyone's like tagging everything. That's good. Okay, I'll get started in a minute. I'm just checking emails. I'll be really quick. Sorry. I can't believe I've done like 3 of these, and I've been on here since like 11:15 this morning. I think this is one of the longer chapters as well, I believe, if I remember, because I've already read these. But my second favourite book. So we're reading chapter 7, The Slug Club. Harry spent a lot of the last week of the holidays pondering the meaning of Malfoy's behaviour in Nocturne Alley. What disturbed him most was the satisfied look on Malfoy's face as he'd left the shop. Nothing that made Malfoy look that happy could be good news. To slight annoyance, however, neither Ron nor Hermione seemed quite as curious about Malfoy's activities as he was. Or at least, they seemed to get bored of discussing it after a few days. Yes, I already agreed it was fishy, Harry, said Hermione a little impatiently. She was sitting on the windowsill in Fred and George's room, with her feet up on one of the cardboard boxes, and had only grudgingly looked up from her new copy of Advanced Rune Translations. But haven't we agreed there could be lots of explanations? Maybe he's broke the Hand of Glory, said Ron vaguely, as he attempted to straighten his broomstick's bent tail twigs. Remember that shriveled up arm Malfoy had? But what about when he said, "Don't forget to keep that one safe," said Harry for the umpteenth time, That sounded to me like Borgen's got another one of those broken objects, and Malfoy wants it. You reckon? Said Ron, now trying to scrape some dirt off his broom handle. Yeah, I do, said Harry. Neither Ron nor Hermione answered. He said, Malfoy's father's in Azkaban. Do you think Malfoy'd like revenge? Ron looked up, blinking. Malfoy? Revenge? What can he do about it? That's my point, I don't know, said Harry, frustrated. But he's up to something, and I think we should take it seriously. His father's a Death Eater, and... Harry broke off, his eyes fixed on the window behind Hermione, his mouth open. A startling thought had just occurred to him. Harry? Said Hermione in an anxious voice. What's wrong? Your scar's not hurting again, is it? Asked Ron nervously. He's a Death Eater, said Harry slowly. He's replaced his father as a Death Eater. There was a silence. Then Ron erupted in laughter. Malfoy? He's 16, Harry. You think you know who'd let Malfoy join? Seems very unlikely, Harry, said Hermione in a responsive sort of voice. What makes you think? In Madame Malkin's, she didn't touch him, but he yelled and jerked his arm away from her when she went to roll up his sleeve. It was his left arm. He's been branded with the dark mark. Ron and Hermione looked at each other. Well, said Ron, sounding thoroughly unconvinced. I think he just wanted to get out of there, Harry, said Hermione. He showed Borgin something we couldn't see. Harry pressed on stubbornly. Something that serious scared Borgin. It was the mark, I know it. He was showing Borgin who he was dealing with. You saw how seriously Borgin took him. Ron and Hermione exchanged another look. I'm not sure, Harry. Yeah, I still don't reckon you know who would let Malfoy join. Annoyed, but absolutely convinced he was right, Harry snatched up a pile of filthy Quidditch robes and left the room. Miss Weasley had been urging them for days not to leave their washing and packing until the last moment. On the landing, he bumped into Ginny, who was returning to her room carrying a pile of freshly laundered clothes. Won't go in the kitchen just now, she warned Harry. There's a lot of phlegm going round. I'll be careful not to slip in it, smiled Harry. Sure enough, when he entered the kitchen, it was to find Fleur sitting at the kitchen table in full flow about plans for her wedding to Bill, while Miss Weasley kept watch over a pile of self-peeling sprouts, looking bad-tempered. Bill and I have almost decided on two bridesmaids. Ginny and Gabrielle will look very sweet together. I'm thinking of dressing them in pale gold. Pink would, of course, be audible with Ginny's hair. Ah, Harry, said Miss Weasley, loudly, cutting across Fleur's monologue. Good. I wanted to explain about the security arrangements for the journey to Hogwarts tomorrow. We've got mixture cars again, and there'll be always waiting at the station. Is Tonks going to be there? Asked Harry, handing over his Quidditch things. Jay, you should definitely be the next audiobook reader for the HBC. Oh, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. I don't think so, but thank you for saying that. It's very nice of you. No, I don't think so. She's been stationed somewhere else, from what Arthur said. She has let herself go, that Tonks, mused Fleur, examining her own stunning reflection in the back of a teaspoon. A big mistake, if you ask. Yes, thank you, said Miss Weasley tartly, cutting across Fleur again. You better get on, Harry. I want the trunks ready tonight if possible, so we don't have the usual late scramble. And in fact, the departure the following morning was smoother than usual. The ministry cars glided up to the front of the burrow to find them waiting, trunks packed, Hermione's cat's Crookshank safely enclosed in his travelling basket, and Hedwig, Ron's owl Pigwidgeon, and Ginny's new purple pygmy puff Arnold in their cages. Au revoir, Harry, said Fleur, throatily, kissing him goodbye. Ron hurried forwards, looking hopeful, but Ginny stuck out her foot, and Ron fell, sprawling in the dust at Fleur's feet. Furious, red-faced, and dirt-spattered, he hurried into the car without saying goodbye. There was no cheer for Hagrid waiting for them at King's Cross Station. Instead, two grim-faced Aurors in dark muggle suits moved forwards the moment the cars stopped, and flanked the party, marched them into the station without speaking. Quick, quick, through the barrier, said Miss Weasley, who seemed a little flustered by this efficiency. Harry better go first with... She looked inquiringly at one of the Aurors, who nodded briefly, seized Harry's upper arm, and attempted to steer him towards the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. I can walk, thanks, said Harry irritably, jerking his arm out of the Auror's grip. He pushed his trolley directly at the solid barrier, ignoring his silent companion, and found himself a second later standing on platform 9 3/4, where the Scarlet Hogwarts Express stood, belching steam over the crowd. Hermione and the Weasleys joined him within seconds. Without waiting to consult his grim-faced order, Harry motioned to Ron and Hermione to follow him up the platform, looking for an empty compartment. "We can't, Harry," said Hermione, looking apologetic. "Ron and I've got to go to the prefect's carriage first, and then patrol the corridors for a bit." "Oh yeah, I forgot," said Harry. "Better get straight on the train, all of you. You've only got a few minutes to go," said Miss Weasley, consulting her watch. "Well, have a lovely term, Ron." "Miss Weasley, can I have a quick word?" said Harry, making up his mind on the spur of the moment. "Of course," said Mr. Weasley, who looked slightly surprised, but followed Harry out of earshot of the others nonetheless. Harry thought it through carefully and come to the conclusion that if he were to tell anyone, Mr. Weasley would be the right person. Firstly, because he worked at the Ministry, and therefore in the best position to make further investigations. And secondly, because he thought that there was not too much risk of Mr. Weasley exploding in anger. You could see Mrs. Weasley and the grim-faced Order casting the pair of them suspicious looks, and they moved away. "When we were in Diagon Alley," Harry began, but Mr. Weasley forestalled him with a grimace. "Am I about to discover where you, Ron, and Hermione disappeared to while you're supposed to be in the back of Fred and George's shop?" "How did you—" "Harry, please. You're talking to the man who raised Fred and George." Yeah, all right, we went in the back room." "Very well then, let's hear the worst." "Well, we followed Draco Malfoy. We used my invisibility cloak." "Did you have any particular reason for doing so, or was it a mere whim?" "Because I thought Malfoy was up to something," said Harry, disregarding Mr. Weasley's look of mingled exasperation and amusement. "Are you reading the first edition? Well, I don't know if it's first edition. This is a very old book. So probably. Don't know. "Because I thought Malfoy was up to something," said Harry, disregarding Mr. Weasley's look of mingled exasperation and amusement. "He'd given his mother the slip, and I wanted to know why." "Of course you did," said Mr. Weasley, sounding resigned. "Well, did you find out why?" "He went into Bolgan and Burke's," said Harry, "and started bullying the bloke in their Bolgan to help him fix something. He said he wanted Bolgan to keep something else for him. He made it sound like it was the same kind of thing that needed fixing, like they were a pair, and—" Harry took a deep breath. "What does it say in the inside cover?" "I don't know. I've never looked at the inside cover." I think it's a first edition. Sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to answer a question in the comments. Yeah, it's a first edition. There's something else. We saw Malfoy jump up about a mile when Madame Malcolm tried to touch his left arm. I think he's branded with the Dark Mark. I think he's replaced his father as a Death Eater." Mr. Weasley looked taken aback. After a moment he said, "Harry, I doubt whether you-know-who would allow a 16-year-old. "Does anyone really know what you-know-who would or wouldn't do?" asked Harry angrily. "Mr. Weasley, I'm sorry, but isn't it worth investigating? If Martha wants something, and he needs to threaten Bolgan to get it done, it's probably something dark and dangerous, isn't it?" "I doubt it, to be honest, Harry," said Mr. Weasley slowly. "You see, when Lucius Malfoy was arrested, we raided his house. We took away everything that might have been dangerous." "I think you missed something," said Harry stubbornly. "And I don't need to apologise. This is a live stream. Anything can happen." "Well, maybe," said Mr. Weasley, but Harry could tell that Mr. Weasley was humouring him. There was a whistle behind them. Nearly everyone had boarded the train, and the doors were closing. "Better hurry," said Mr. Weasley, as Miss Weasley cried, "Harry, quickly!" He hurried forwards, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley helped him load his trunk onto the train. "Now, dear, you're coming to us for Christmas. It's all fixed with Dumbledore, so we'll see you quite soon," said Miss Weasley through the window, as Harry slammed the door shut behind him, and the train began to move. "You make sure you look after yourself." The train was gathering speed. "Be good, and—" She was jogging to keep up now. "Stay safe." Sorry, I heard my neighbours there. I thought it was someone at my door. Harry waved until the train had turned a corner and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were lost from view, then turned to see where the others had got to. He supposed Ron and Hermione were clustered in the prefect's carriage, but Ginny was a little way along the corridor, chatting to some friends. He made his way towards her, dragging his trunk. People stared shamelessly as he approached. They even pressed their face against the windows of their compartments to get a good look at him. He expected an upswing in the amount of gawping and gaping he would have to endure this term after all the chosen one rumours in the Daily Prophet. He did not enjoy the sensation of standing in a very bright spotlight. He tapped Ginny on the shoulder. Fancy trying to find a compartment? I can't, Harry. I said to meet Dean, Ginny said brightly. See you later. Right, said Harry. He felt a strange twinge of annoyance as she walked away, her long red hair dancing behind her. He'd become so used to her presence over the summer that he'd almost forgotten that Ginny did not hang around with him, Ron, and Hermione while at school. Then he blinked and looked around. He was surrounded by mesmerised girls. Hi, Harry, said a familiar voice from behind him. Neville, said Harry in relief, turning to see a round-faced boy struggling towards him. Hello, Harry, said a girl with long hair and large misty eyes, who was just behind Neville. Luna, hi, how are you? Very well, thank you, said Luna. She was clutching a magazine to her chest. Large letters on the front announced that there were a pair of free Spectre specs inside. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Quibble's still going strong then? Asked Harry, who felt a certain fondness for the magazine, having given it an exclusive interview the previous year. Oh yes, circulation's well up, said Luna happily. Let's find seats, said Harry, and the three of them set off along the train through the hordes of silently staring students. At last they found an empty compartment, and Harry hurried inside gratefully. They're even staring at us, said Neville, indicating himself and Luna, because we're with you. They're staring at you because you were at the ministry too, said Harry, as he hoisted his trunk into the luggage rack. A little adventure there was all over the Daily Prophet. You must have seen it. Yeah, I thought Gran would be angry about all the publicity, said Neville. But she was really pleased. She said I'm starting to live up to my dad at long last. She bought me a new wand, look. He pulled it out and showed it to Harry. Cherry and unicorn hair, he said proudly. We think it was one of the last of Ollivander's ever sold. He vanished the next day. Oi, come back here, Trevor! And he dived under the seat to retrieve his toad, as it made one of its frequent bids for freedom. Are we still doing the DA meetings this year, Harry? Asked Luna, who was detaching a pair of psychedelic spectacles from the middle of the quibbler. No point now, we've got rid of Umbridge, is there? Said Harry, sitting down. Neville bumped his head against the seat as he emerged from under it. He looked most disappointed. My goodness, you definitely sound like a Lynch. Thanks, I try. I do like doing Luna's voice just because I love Luna. So thank you very much. A compliment actually sound like Ivana Lynch. Thank you. Neville bumped his head against the seat as he emerged from under it. He looked most disappointed. I liked the DA. I learned loads with you. I enjoyed the meetings too, said Luna sincerely. It was like having friends. This was one of the most uncomfortable things Luna often said, which made Harry feel a squirmy mixture of pity and embarrassment. Before he could respond, however, there was a disturbance outside the compartment door. A group of fourth-year girls were whispering and giggling together on the other side of the glass. You ask him. No, you. I'll do it. And one of them, a bold-looking girl with large dark eyes, a prominent chin, and long black hair, pushed her way through the door. Hi, Harry. I'm Romilda Vane, she said loudly and confidently. Why don't you join us in our compartment? You don't have to sit with them, she added in a staged whisper, indicating Neville's bottom, which was sticking out from under the seat again as he groped around for Trevor, and Luna, who was now wearing her free Spectre specs, which gave her the look of a demented, multicoloured owl. HBO need to hire you to play Luna. I think I'm too old to play Luna, sadly. I'd be far too old to play Luna. Very much, sadly so. I would love to play Luna, but I don't think it would happen. They're friends of mine, said Harry coldly. Oh, said the girl, looking very surprised. Oh, okay. And she withdrew, sliding the door closed behind her. People expect you to have cooler friends than us, said Luna, once again, displaying her knack for embarrassing honesty. You're cool, said Harry shortly. None of them were at the ministry. They didn't fight with me. It's a very nice thing to say, beamed Luna, and she pushed her Spectre specs further up her nose and settled down to read the quibbler. We didn't face him, though, said Neville, emerging from under the seat with fluff and dust in his hair and a resigned-looking Trevor in his hand. You did. You did hear my gran talk about you. That's how Harry Potter's got more backbone than the whole Ministry of Magic put together. She'd give anything to have you as a grandson. Harry laughed uncomfortably and changed the subject to owl results as soon as he could. While Neville recited his grades and wondered aloud whether he'd be allowed to take a transfiguration newt with only an acceptable, Harry watched him without really listening. Sorry, I'm going to have to take a drink. Okay. Neville's childhood had been blinded by Voldemort just as much as Harry's had. But Neville had no idea how close he had come to having Harry's destiny. The prophecy could have referred to either of them, yet for his own insecurable reasons, Voldemort had chose to believe that Harry was the one meant. Had Voldemort chose Neville, it would be Neville sitting opposite Harry bearing the lightning-shaped scar and the weight of the prophecy. Or would it? Would Neville's mother have died to save him, as Lily died for Harry? Surely she would. But what if she had been unable to stand between her son and Voldemort? Would there then have been no chosen one at all? An empty seat where Neville now sat, and a scarless Harry who had been kissed goodbye by his own mother and not Ron's? You're right, Harry, you look funny, said Neville. Harry stared. Sorry, Waxbirds got you? Asked Luna sympathetically, peering at Harry through her enormous coloured spectacles. What? Waxbirds, they're invisible. They float in through your ears and make your brain go fuzzy, she said. I thought I felt one zooming around in here. She flapped her hands at thin air as though beating off large invisible moths. Harry and Neville caught each other's eye and hastily began to talk about Quidditch. The weather beyond the train windows was as patchy as it had been all summer. They passed through stretches of the chilling mist and then out into weak, clear sunlight. It was during one of these clear spells, when the sun was visible almost distant directly overhead, that Ron and Hermione entered the compartment at last. Wish the lunch trolley would hurry up, I'm starving, said Ron longingly, slumped into the seat beside Harry and rubbing his stomach. Hi, Neville. Hi, Luna. Guess what? He added, turning to Harry. Malfoy's not doing prefect duty. He was just sitting in his compartment with the other Slytherins. We saw him when we passed. Harry sat up straight, interested. It was not like Malfoy to pass up the chance to demonstrate his power as a prefect, which he'd happily abused all the previous year. What did he do when he saw you? The usual, said Ron indifferently, demonstrating a rude hand gesture. Not like him though, is it? Well, that is. He did the hand gesture again. But why isn't he out there bullying first years? Dunno, said Harry, but his mind was racing. Didn't this look as though Malfoy had more important things on his mind than bullying younger students? Maybe he preferred the Inquisitorial Squad, said Hermione. Maybe being a prefect seems a bit tame after that. Don't think so, said Harry. I think he's... But before he could impound on his theory, the compartment door slid open again, and a breathless third-year girl stepped inside. I'm supposed to deliver these to Neville Longbottom and Harry Potter, she flustered, as her eyes met Harry's, and she turned scarlet. She was holding out 2 scrolls of parchment, tied with violet ribbon. Perplexed, Harry and Neville took the scrolls addressed to each of them, and the girl stumbled back out of the compartment. What is it? Ron demanded as Harry unrolled his. An invitation, said Harry. Harry, I'd be delighted if you could join me for a bite of lunch in compartment C. Sincerely, Professor H.E.F. Slughorn. Who's Professor Slughorn? Said Neville, looking perplexed at his own invitation. New teacher, said Harry. Well, I suppose we'll have to go, won't we? But what's he want me for? Asked Neville nervously, as though he was expecting a detention. No idea, said Harry, which was not entirely true, though he had no proof yet of his hunch was correct. Listen, he added, seized by a sudden brainwave. Let's go under the invisibility cloak. Then we might get a good look at Malfoy on the way, see what he's up to. This idea, however, came to nothing. The corridors, which were packed with people on the lookout for the lunch trolley, were impossible to negotiate while wearing the cloak. Harry stowed it regretfully back in his bag, reflecting that it would have been nice to wear just to avoid all the staring, which seemed to have increased in intensity ever since he'd last walked down the train. Every now and then, students would hurtle out of their compartments to get a better look at him. The exception was Cho Chang, who darted into her compartment when she saw Harry coming. As Harry passed the window, he saw her deep and determined conversation with her friend Marietta, who was wearing a very thick layer of makeup that did not entirely obscure the odd formation of pimples still etched across her face. Smirking slightly, Harry pushed on. When they reached compartment C, they saw at once that they were not Slughorn's only invites. Oh, hi, sorry, I just saw that comment there. Sorry, hi. only invitees, although judging by the enthusiasm of Slughorn's welcome, Harry was the most warmly anticipated. "Harry, my boy," said Slughorn, jumping up at the sight of him, so that his great velvet-covered belly seemed to fill all the remaining space in the compartment. His shiny bald head and great silver moustache gleamed as brightly in the sunlight as the golden buttons on his waistcoat. "I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" "Good to see you, good to see you. And you must be Mr. Longbottom." Neville nodded, looking scared. At a gesture from Slughorn, they sat down opposite each other in the only two empty seats, which were nearest the door. Harry glanced around at their fellow guest. He recognised the Slytherin from their year, a tall black boy with high cheekbones and long slanted eyes. There were also two seventh-year boys Harry did not know, and squashed into the corner beside Slughorn, and looking as though she was not entirely sure how she got there, Ginny. "Now, do you know everyone?" Slughorn asked Harry and Neville. "Blaise Sabini is in your year, of course." Sabini did not make any sign of recognition or greeting, and nor did Harry or Neville. Gryffindor and Slytherin students loathed each other on principle. "This is Cormac McLaggen. Perhaps you've come across each other?" "No?" McLaggen, a large, wired-haired youth, raised a hand, and Neville and Harry nodded back at him. "This is Marcus Belby. I don't know whether—" Belby, who was thin and nervous-looking, gave a strained smile. "And this charming young lady tells me she knows you," Slughorn finished. Ginny grimaced at Harry and Neville from behind Slughorn's back. "Well, now this is most pleasant," said Slughorn cosily. If that's okay. "Yeah, that's fine. You can head off. There's no pressure to stay. But thank you for joining. It was really nice of you to give those lovely comments. Hope you have a nice day." "Oh, now this is pleasant," said Slughorn cosily. "A chance to get to know you all a little better. Here, take a napkin. Pack my own lunch." "No, you can go. It's fine." "I packed my own lunch. The trolley, as I remember, is heavy on licorice ones, and a poor old wizard's digestive system isn't quite up to such things. Pheasant, Belby." Belby stared and accepted what looked like half a cold pheasant. "I was just telling young Marcus here that I had had the pleasure of teaching his uncle Damocles," Slughorn told Harry and Neville, now passing around a basket of rolls. "Outstanding wizard, outstanding, and his Order of Merlin most well deserved. Do you see much of your uncle, Marcus?" Unfortunately, Belby had just taken a large mouthful of pheasant. In his haste to answer Slughorn, he swallowed too fast, turned purple, and began to choke. "Anipo," said Slughorn calmly, pointing his own at Belby, whose airways seemed to clear at once. Not much of him now," gasped Belby, his eyes steaming. "Well, of course, I dare say he's busy," said Slughorn, looking questionably at Belby. "I doubt he invented the wolfsbane potion without considerable hard work." "Okay, that's fine. I suppose," said Belby, who seemed afraid to take another bite of pheasant until he was sure Slughorn had finished with him. He and my dad don't get on very well, you see, so I don't really know much about—" His voice tailed away as Slughorn gave him a cold smile and turned to McLaggen instead. "Now you, Cormac," he said. "I happen to know you see a lot of your Uncle Tiberius because he has a rather splendid picture of you two hunting knocktails in, I think, Norfolk." "Oh yeah, that was fun, that was," said McLaggen. "Went with Bertie Higgs and Rufus Scrimger. That was before he was Magister of Magic, obviously." "Ah, you know Bertie and Rufus too," beamed Slughorn, now offering around a small tray of pies. However, Belby was missed out. "Now tell me." It was as Harry suspected. Everyone here seemed to have been invited because they were connected to somebody well-known or influential. Everyone except Ginny. Sabini, who was interrogated after McLaggen, turned out to have a very beautiful, famous witch for a mother. From what Harry could make out, she had been married 7 times, each of her husbands dying mysteriously and leaving mounds of gold. It was Neville's turn next. This was a very uncomfortable 10 minutes, for Neville's parents, well-known orders, had been tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange and a couple of Death Eater cronies. At the end of Neville's interview, Harry had the impression that Slughorn was reserving judgment on Neville, yet to see whether he had any of his parents' flair. "And now," said Slughorn, shifting massively in his seat, with the air of compare introducing his star act, "Harry Potter. Where do I begin? I felt barely scratched the surface when we met over summer." He contemplated Harry for a moment, as though he were a particularly large and succulent piece of pheasant, then said, "The chosen one, they're calling you now." He said nothing. Belby, McLaggen, and Sabini were all staring at him. "Of course," said Slughorn, watching Harry closely. "There have been many rumours for years. I remember when, well, after that terrible night, Lily, James, you survived, and the word was that you must have powers beyond the ordinary. Sabini gave a tiny little cough that was clearly supposed to indicate amused skepticism. An angry voice burst out from behind Slughorn. Yes, Sabini, because you're so talented at posing. Oh dear, chuckled Slughorn comfortably looking round at Ginny, who was glaring at Sabini around Slughorn's great belly. You want to be careful, Blaze. I saw this young lady perform the most marvellous backbogey hex. As I was passing her carriage, I wouldn't cross her. Sabini merely looked contemptuous. Anyway, said Slughorn, turning back to Harry. Such rumours this summer. Of course, one doesn't know what to believe. The prophet has been known to print inaccuracies, make mistakes. But there seems little doubt, given the numerous number of witnesses, and there was quite a disturbance at the ministry, and you were all there in the thick of it all. Harry, who could not see any way out of this without flatly lying, nodded, but still said nothing. Slughorn beamed at him. So modest, so modest. No wonder Dumbledore's so fond. You were there, then? But the rest of the story is so sensational, of course. One doesn't quite know what to believe. The fabled prophecy, for instance. We never heard a prophecy, said Neville, turning genuine pink as he said it. That's right, said Ginny stoutly. Neville and I were both there too, and all this chosen one rubbish is just the prophet making stuff up as usual. You were both there too, were you? Said Slughorn with great interest, looking from Ginny to Neville, but both of them sat clam-like before his encouraging smile. Yes, well, it is true that the prophet often exaggerates, of course. Slughorn continued, sounding a little disappointed. I remember dear Gwenog Jones, of course, of the Holyhead Harpies. He meandered off into a long-winded reminiscence, but Harry had the distant impression that Slughorn had not finished with him yet, and that he had not been convinced by Neville and Ginny. The afternoon... The afternoon wore on with more anecdotes about illustrious wizards Slughorn had taught, all of whom had been delighted to join what he called the Slug Club at Hogwarts. Harry could not wait to leave, but couldn't see how to do so politely. Finally, the train emerged from yet another long, misty stretch into a red sunset, and Slughorn looked around, blinking in the twilight. Goodness gracious, it's getting dark already. Didn't notice that they'd lit the lamps. You better go and change into your robes, all of you. McLaggen, you must drop by and borrow that book on Nogtails. Harry, Blaze, anytime you're passing. Same for you, miss. He twinkled at Ginny. Well, off you go, off you go. As he pushed past Harry into the darkening corridor, Sabini shot him a filthy look that Harry returned with interest. He, Ginny, and Neville followed Sabini back along the train. Glad that's over, muttered Neville. Strange man, isn't he? Yeah, he is a bit, said Harry, his eyes on Sabini. How come you ended up in there, Ginny? You saw me hex Zachariah Smith, said Ginny. Remember that idiot from Hufflepuff who was in the DA? He kept on and on asking about what happened in the ministry, and in the end he annoyed me so much I hexed him. When Slughorn came in, I thought I was going to get a detention. He just thought it was really good hex and invited me to lunch. Mad, eh? Better reason for inviting someone than because their mother's famous, said Harry, scowling at the back of Sabini's head, or because their uncle. But he broke off. An idea just occurred to him, a reckless but potentially wonderful idea. In a minute's time, Sabini was going to re-enter the Slytherin sixth-year compartment, and Malfoy would be sitting there, thinking himself unheard by anybody except fellow Slytherins. If Harry could only enter unseen behind him, what might he not see or hear? True, there was a little of journey left. Hogsmeade Station has to be less than half an hour away, judging by the wildness of the scenery flashing by the windows. But nobody else seemed prepared to take Harry's suspicion seriously, so it was down to him to prove it. I'll see you two later, he said, under his breath, pulling out his invisibility cloak and flinging it over himself. But what are you? Asked Neville. Later, whispered Harry, darting after Sabini as quietly as possible, though the rattling of the train made such caution almost pointless. The corridors were almost completely empty now. Nearly everyone had returned to their carriages to change into their school robes and pack up their possessions, though he was as close as he could get to Sabini without touching him. Harry was not quick enough to slip into the compartment when Sabini opened the door. Sabini was already sliding it shut when Harry hastily stuck out his foot to prevent it closing. What's wrong with this thing? Said Sabini angrily, as he smashed the sliding door repeatedly into Harry's foot. Harry seized the door and pushed it open hard. Sabini, clinging onto the handle, toppled over sideways into Gregory Goyle's lap, and in the ensuing ruckus, Harry darted into the compartment, leapt up onto Sabini's temporarily empty seat, and hoisted himself up into the luggage rack. It was fortunate that Goyle and Sabini were snarling at each other, drawing all eyes to them, for Harry was quite sure his feet and ankle had been revealed as the cloak flapped around them. Indeed, for one horrible moment, he thought he saw Malfoy's eyes follow his trainer as it whipped upwards out of sight. But then Goyle slammed the door shut and flung Sabini off of him. Sabini collapsed in his own seat, looking roughed. Vincent Crabbe returned to his comic, and Malfoy, sniggering, lay back down across two seats, with his head in Pansy Parkinson's lap. Harry lay curled uncomfortably under the cloak, to ensure that every inch of him remained hidden, and watched Pansy stroke the sleek blonde hair off Malfoy's forehead, smirking as she did so, as though anyone would have loved to be in her place. The lantern swinging from the carriage ceiling cast a bright light over the scene. Harry could read every word of Crabbe's comic directly below him. "So, Sabini," said Malfoy, "what did Slughorn want?" "Just trying to make up to well-connected people," said Sabini, who was still glorying at Goyle. Not that he managed to find many. This information did not seem to please Malfoy. "Who else did he invite?" he demanded. "McLaggen from Gryffindor," said Sabini. "Oh yeah, his uncle's big in the ministry," said Malfoy. "Someone else called Belby from Ravenclaw." "Not him, he's a prat," said Pansy. "A Longbottom, Potter, and that Weasley girl," finished Sabini. Malfoy sat up very suddenly, knocking Pansy's hand aside. "He invited Longbottom?" "Well, I assume so, as Longbottom was there," said Sabini indifferently. What's Longbottom got to interest Slughorn?" Sabini shrugged. "Potter. Precious Potter. Obviously you want to look at the chosen one," sneered Malfoy. "But that Weasley girl, what's so special about her?" "A lot of the boys like her," said Pansy, watching Malfoy out of the corner of her eye for his reaction. "Even you think she's good-looking, don't you, Blaise? And we all know how hard you are to please." "Wouldn't touch a filthy little blood trick like her, whatever she looked like," said Sabini coldly, and Pansy looked pleased. Malfoy sank back across her lap and allowed her to resume stroking his hair. "Well, I pity Slughorn's taste. Maybe he's got a bit senile. Shame. My father always said he was a good wizard in his day. My father used to be a bit of a favourite of his. Slughorn probably hasn't heard I'm on the train, or..." "I won't bank on an invitation," said Sabini. "He asked me about Nott's father when I arrived. They used to be old friends, apparently. But when he heard he'd been caught at the ministry, he didn't look happy, and Nott didn't get an invitation, did he? I don't think Slughorn was interested in Death Eaters." Malfoy looked angry, but forced out a singingly humorless laugh. "Who cares what he's interested in? What is he when you come down to it? Just some stupid teacher." Malfoy yawned. "I mean, I might not even be at Hogwarts next year. What's it to matter to me if some fat old has-been likes me or not?" "What do you mean you might not be at Hogwarts next year?" said Pansy, ceasing grooming Malfoy at once. "You never know," said Malfoy, with a ghost of a smirk. "I might have moved on to bigger, better things." Crouched in the luggage rack under his cloak, Harry's heart began to race. What would Ron and Hermione say about this? Crabbe and Goyle were gawping at Malfoy, apparently having had no inkling of any plans to move on to bigger and better things. Even Sabini had allowed a look of curiosity to mar his holly features. Pansy resumed the slow stroking of Malfoy's hair, looking dumbfounded. "Do you mean him?" Malfoy shrugged. "Mother wants me to complete my education, but personally I don't see it as that important these days. I mean, think about it. When the Dark Lord takes over, is he going to care how many owls or newts anyone's got? Of course he isn't. It's all about the kind of service he received, the level of devotion he was shown." "And you think you'll be able to do something for him?" asked Sabine scathingly. 16-year-old, not even fully qualified yet." "I just said, haven't I? Maybe he doesn't care if I'm qualified. Maybe the job he wants me to do isn't something that you need qualifications for," said Malfoy quietly. Crabbe and Goyle were both sitting there, with their mouths open like gargoyles. Pansy was gazing down at Malfoy as though she had never seen anything so awe-inspiring. "I can see Hogwarts," said Malfoy, clearly relishing the effect he had created as he pointed out the blackened window. "Better get our robes on." Harry was so busy staring at Malfoy, he did not notice Goyle reaching up for his trunk. As he swung it down, it hit Harry hard on the side of the head. He let out an involuntary gasp of pain, and Malfoy looked up at the luggage rack, frowning. Harry was not afraid of Malfoy. He still did not much like the idea of being discovered hiding under his invisibility cloak by a group of unfriendly Slytherins. Eyes still watering and head still throbbing, he drew his wand, careful not to disarrange the cloak, and waited, breath held. To his relief, Malfoy seemed to decide that he'd imagined the noise. He pulled on his robes like the others, locked his trunk, and as the train slowed to a jerky crawl, fastened a thick new travelling cloak around his neck. Harry could see the corridors filling up again and hoped that Hermione and Ron would take his things out onto the platform for him. He was stuck where he was until compartment had quite emptied. At last, with a final lurch, the train came to a complete halt. Goyle threw the door open and muscled his way into the crowd of second years, pushing them aside. Crabbe and Sabini followed. "You go," Malfoy told Pansy, who was waiting for him, with her hand held out as though hoping he would hold it. "I want to check something." Pansy left. Now Harry and Malfoy were alone in the compartment. People were filing past, descending onto the dark platform. Malfoy moved over to the compartment door and let down the blinds so that people in the corridor beyond could not peer in. Then he bent down over his trunk and opened it again. Harry peered down over the edge of the luggage rack, his heart pumping a little faster. What had Malfoy wanted to hide from Pansy? Was he about to see the mysterious broken object that was so important to mend? "Petrificus totalis!" Without warning, Malfoy pointed his wand at Harry, who was instantly paralysed. As though in slow motion, he toppled out of the luggage rack and fell with an agonising floor-shaking crash at Malfoy's feet, the invisibility cloak trapped beneath him, his whole body revealed with his legs still curled absurdly into the cramped kneeling position. He couldn't move a muscle. He could only gaze up at Malfoy, who smiled broadly. "I thought so," he said jubilantly. "I heard Goyle's trunk hit you, and I thought I saw something white flash through the air after Sabini came back." His eyes lingered for a moment upon Harry's trainers. "That was you blocking the door when Sabini came back in, I suppose?" He considered Harry for a moment. "You didn't hear anything I care about, Potter. But while I've got you here," and he stamped hard on Harry's face. Harry felt his nose break. Blood spurted everywhere. "That's from my father. Now let's see." Malfoy dragged the cloak out from under Harry's immobilised body and threw it over him. "I don't reckon they'll find you till the train's back in London," he said quietly. "See you around, Potter. Or not." And taking care to tread on Harry's fingers, Malfoy left the compartment. So that was Half-Blood Prince. So that was books 5 and 6. I'm nearly done. Just got one more book left. Just have to read 19 years later. And then we're done for Back to Hogwarts this year. So I'm going to take a little break and then I will come back to do the last live stream. It probably won't be long because 19 years later is quite short. But I will get this up and sorted as quickly as I can. So you can rewatch these whenever you want. They will be in my Harry Potter playlist. I have done books 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and they will be in there if you want to go back and watch them. It's fine. But I will see you guys in a bit. Bye.